part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Look up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane.
This is Jason J. Lewis, the voice of Superman on Justice League Action.
This is Mark Wade, writer of Superman Birthright.
You're listening to the Krypton Report.
Look up in the sky.
Hey, I hope you guys enjoy this episode. I just want to throw out here, there was some technical issues and we didn't realize what was going on. So there is some static on my guest's side. I do apologize, but it's a great interview. It's a great chat and I'm going to clean it up as much as I can, but enjoy. Welcome to the Krypton Report podcast. I am your host, Tyler, the Superman of Blue and the Man of Tomorrow. I have a very special episode today. Just me flying solo, not with solo, but just me. I have a special guest, and I'll introduce him here in a moment, that I've been wanting to do because I always love talking to people who are inspired by the comics that are created. So I have today Mr. Isiah Simmons. Welcome, Isiah.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going good, man. Going good. I want to thank you for coming on. Isiah is an artist, and his work is... I'm not fluent enough in art in terms to like really say what it is, but I will say that your art is fun, uplifting, and I mean it pops. It's beautiful. And when we first started talking a while back, I told you I wanted to have you draw something up for me, but then just money and time and everything just didn't work out. But we will down the line, I promise, because I love your stuff.
Yeah, it's all right.
I love it. I was sitting here, like currently, if you want to find Isiah, he'll drop off his plugs and I'll have it in the show notes. But his icon is me. That's right, the Superman of Blue. I'm just joking.
I was going to ask if that was referencing that.
Yeah, so when I started this, a little quick history, like it was just me doing it. And then James came on and we wanted to try to find a way to kind of just find our own little, niche. And what's funny is, there's been Superman Blue and Superman Red, not electric, but it's always the electric that people think of,
Yeah.
So we just kind of rolled into it a little bit. Like our cover art's kind of based off Superman Red and Blue, #1.
Oh, yeah. I noticed that today, honestly. I thought that's what that was, but I wasn't 100% sure.
Yeah. So I have in front of me my tablet. It finally stopped updating, and I was showing my kids your artwork and stuff, and my son really loved your recent Miguel O'Hara from Spider-Verse because he really liked Miguel. So that was cool.
I think everybody does after that movie, but
yeah, Oscar Isaac's he nailed it. But yeah, we're just gonna kind of talk and chat, and like I said, I have right here in front of me your Instagram. This was the quickest way to find the most of your art.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I love it. Like, I mean, you have a way of doing the characters justice to where it's the character, but you have your own little spin on it. And it's just inspiring. So we're going to talk about it. But before we get into your skills and your art, gosh, it's so cool. I wish I could draw. It's one of my lifelong dreams. But no, my stick figures suffice. Being in film school and you're plotting out something on your storyboard using stick figures, amazing. What got you into comics? Like just comics? Like where was that initial spark of interest in this stuff?
See, I figured that would be a question, so I was actually trying to think about that a couple minutes ago. But I think it originally, and I mean, you can probably tell this by looking at my art, but a lot of it would have been the Bruce Timm, Justice League and Superman the Animated Series. But if I remember correctly, honestly, before that, it was when me and my brother were kids. My dad had the Challenge of the Super Friends on DVD. So I think that was actually the first exposure I had to that. And then after that, it would have been Superman the Animated Series and Justice League, and then it just kind of
Spiral.
It follows that, watching those, and then when I was old enough to read comic books and stuff, although honestly, one problem was I grew up in a small town in South Dakota, and there wasn't a bookstore or comic book store or anything, so I didn't really get to read comic books that often. But then once I did, I was like, honestly, I liked the pictures more than I liked the writing, and I just wanted to draw that stuff. So like if you look back, and it's the drawing stuff started with like, you know, Superman the animated series, and just wanted to draw all that because I really liked it. But so yeah, I guess I just started as, you know, being a kid and watching the cartoons. Like I'm sure it's that way for a lot of people.
Yeah, I would imagine. On your art journey, did you start by tracing? I knew some people, I've heard them talk about how they start tracing things before doing freehand, or did you kind of just start freehand?
Well, so I mean, I absolutely started freehand, but it was just looking at pictures and drawing from them. Like I remember when I was younger, my dad actually did some art stuff in college too, and so he was able to, like, we give him like the DVD cover for like Superman the animated series or Super Friends or something. He'd look at it and draw it. Then I was like, hey, I can do that too. So I did that. But eventually I remember I want to say it was like my 8th or 9th birthday. I got like a light box, and I believe it was a set with like Superman the animated series stuff, so that it had like a drawing or whatever, and then you trace over it. So I did that. I don't know how much I learned from that because I mean I was really young, but so I guess the answer would be both. I traced and I drew my own stuff.
That's cool. I mean, you got to start somewhere,
Yeah, absolutely.
I love your. Like I said, I'm on your Instagram going through here, but the animated The Batman.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Movie where you did like classic appearance with the purple gloves.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So your style, I love it. I could really do.
Thank you.
Like it was like my first. I got so many questions. I'm all over the place today.
That's all right.
So take us back when you first started drawing. Did you say, "Hey, I want to do this," or "I want to sell artwork"? Was it just doodling? What kind of has been your artistic journey to where we are now?
Well, I mean, when it started, I was just like, you know, I like this stuff and I want to draw it, and so that's what I did. And then eventually, like there was a good, I don't know how many years, but where I would make a bunch of comic book. Well, I say comic books, but I was a little kid, so they were pretty rough. But I made a bunch of them, and that was because in my head I was like, hey, I don't really have any way to get comic books or anything or look at them, so I'm gonna make my own, and then I can read them. And then honestly, I'd make them and I wouldn't sit there and read them because I mean I already knew what happened because I made it. But then I did that through, I don't know, like high school-ish, I'd say, until I was 14. And then honestly, I kind of had a little bit of a patch where I kind of, like, you know, when you grow up doing something and, you know, like your parents or grandparents or everybody else tells you you're really good at it. And so you kind of just ride that as, oh, I'm really good at this thing. So
Yeah.
I did that for a while and didn't really work hard to practice. And so I'd say from probably like when I was 14 up until like 18. Yeah, 18. I didn't really, like, I drew. I always struggle with the past tense of draw. I think that's correct, but I could be wrong. But I did that, but again, it wasn't like a focus on getting better. I didn't really try that hard because I was just like, oh, I'm good at this. And then what actually prompted me to, like, you know, start practicing and like want to work to improve was, I mean, everybody knows who he is, but Patrick Gleason, you know, Superman, Rebirth, Batman and Robin, all that good stuff. So
Amazing.
I was, like I said, I was like 17 or 18, so I mean, still a kid, but I was like, I'm trying to think of how to put this. I didn't have enough shame to be worried about like DMing somebody like that. And so I actually sent him a Superman drawing that I did. And I was like, hey, could you look at this and tell me what you think about it? And in my head, I'm like, oh, he's going to respond and be like, that's the best thing I've ever seen. You're so great. Because that's what I'd heard, you know. I thought I was really good. And I also didn't expect him to reply at all. But he actually did. And I've posted it before on both Instagram and Twitter, actually, because every so often I like to redo the drawing that I had sent him to kind of prove to myself that I've improved and changed the way I do things. And also because it's fun, because I like doing that a lot where, you know, the best way to keep track of if you grew or not is to compare to what you used to do. But so sorry, I'm not the greatest storyteller, but
No, you're
I
fine.
sent him.
I appreciate, like, because a lot of times in art, I like to use art in drawings, even though like I can't draw, as examples to my kids of where someone can start and where they can go, and that you can hold up different drawings of a character like Spider-Man or Batman, and they can all be good, but there's subjective to it.
Yep.
So don't let people tell you suck. They just might not like your style. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I appreciate your story. Like, it just enforces things for people that you had the drive to actually message someone like that. Like, hey, I mean, I've done similar things trying to talk to people. I mean, I even had an interview one time with Mark Wade, and I asked him if he was doing any kind of like apprenticeship, mentorship, or anything like that for writers, and he was like, "No, I'm not, but I tried." Like,
hey, yeah, I mean, that was my takeaway from doing that too, is you gotta try. But I'm trying to think where I left off. Okay, so I sent him that. I didn't expect him to respond, and it also it wasn't even like it was Instagram or Twitter or anything, where most people are. Like, I did this on Facebook, so like everything was stacked against me that he wouldn't see it. But he did, like, a month or two after I sent it, and then he actually like took the time to like do a quick little sketch, kind of recreating what I did, but showing me, hey, like, one specific thing was the way I drew it. And looking back, it's crazy that I never thought about this until he pointed it out. Was that, obviously when it comes to drawing anatomy and whatever, like, when people move, their muscles move. And that was something I literally never thought about before that point, because one thing that I did that wasn't necessarily the greatest as a kid was I kind of learned that stuff from like action figures. And, obviously the action figure doesn't move when you move it. So everything's static. And on that Superman, like, he's got his arm stretched above his head. But I drew both of his pecs the same, as if like his arms were down. Whereas realistically, if you move your arm up, and this is getting a little nerdy, but if you move your arm up, like, your pec's going to move up with it, and your bicep kind of comes in front of your shoulder and everything. And so he pointed out stuff like that. And that was like a revelation in itself, that I was like, oh, wow. And then stuff with like the head too, in perspective, like when he tilted up, like, the nose moves up and the eyes come down below the eyebrows a little bit more. And so it's just a bunch of little stuff like that. But it really changed the way I was looking at it. And so then right away after he did that, I wanted to redraw it and try again. But even then, like, I was still drawing more. But then what happened was I actually made an Instagram account. And, obviously you're looking at it right now.
Yep.
But that was not the original plan. The original plan was not for me to, like, make an art account. That wasn't even a thought that I had in my head. But I made that, and then I had DM'd him on Instagram about something else. I don't remember what it was. And then he followed me. And so then he followed me, and I was like, well, okay. I've got this professional artist following me. At that time, he was the only one, and like the first time that anyone did that, like, that also blew my mind. The fact that, the people whose comic books I really liked reading and the art that I really liked looking at, that they would see my stuff. It was crazy to me. But because of that, I was like, well, hey, I've got to kind of do something to earn this follow. I need to start posting art or something, so that to get it in my head is like to give him something to see, and earn that follow. And so then from there, it just spiraled on to I was drawing more and more consistently. And then, I liked doing it. I liked posting it. I mean, in the beginning, I didn't necessarily get as much traction as I did now. Honestly, now, especially on Instagram, like, it's like a 50-50 shot on if anything you post is going to get good engagement. But yeah. I just did it, and I like doing it, and I'm glad I did it, because like the amount that I've improved since then is crazy. And it's because, like, people get upset sometimes because you ask someone, how did you get good at what you do? And they'll just answer, you just got to do it. You just got to practice. And that was me, where I would be like, come on, there's got to be some like cheat code or magic pen that I can use or whatever that'll help me get better. And I mean, the answer was just practice. And so at this point, it's just a habit. Like, I like doing it. Now I get commissions every once in a while, or I sell prints or whatever. And that's how it started, was just, because Patrick Gleason followed me, and I wanted to make sure I was putting out art for him to see.
I understand those feelings. I'm scrolling through, just going back. I'm in 2019,
Oh,
looking
yep,
at
that's
when the
yeah.
Patrick Gleason cover, like you did your version of this Patrick
Oh,
Gleason
yeah. And
Superman
I look
Rebirth
back
cover.
on that. I look back on that, and I know, like you said, art is subjective, so there's no good or bad. But I will add that if you're an artist, you believe that for everyone but yourself.
Oh yeah, oh
So,
totally,
so
totally.
I look back on that, and I cringe at some of the stuff. And even back then, he would still like and comment on some of my stuff, because he was being nice. And I'm like, oh, I can't believe he saw that or whatever. But I mean, hey, that's part of it. It's how you
You gotta,
grow.
one of my favorite things, and I showed this to my kids, was like the little boy Alex Ross drawing.
Yep.
You know what I'm talking about? Like he
Yeah.
posted where it's like one like him as a little kid drawing, and then like now, I'm like, look, kids, look
Yep.
what practice and focus and determination can get you.
Absolutely.
Because I mean, you can just flip through your Instagram and you see just the growth in your work, and it's phenomenal.
Yeah, and that's one thing, especially those posts from like 2018, 2019, man. I scroll all the way to the bottom, and like those physically hurt me to look at. But I know some people do it. I mean, hey, if you want to do it, it's your call. But like, some people will delete their older stuff, and only post their new good stuff. But I kind of part of why I post it too, like post my art when I finish it, is like in my mind, once I post it on Instagram or Twitter or whatever, it's done. I can stop obsessing over it and be like, well, what if this is right, whatever, and then I can look back on it and be like, okay, I'll change this, this, and this next time, and that way I keep moving forward. But yeah, some of those ones, it's like if I was the kind of person to delete them, I would, because they are rough.
But it shows like it's just a testament to growth,
Right.
and I think that's good for. I think sometimes online people live too much of like the perfection and don't want to
Hmm.
show the flaws. But
Absolutely.
so one of my favorites that I had commented on your tweet before, because I started following you first on Twitter, because I don't get on Instagram that much. I just don't. And was you had done a electric Superman that was split in the middle. One side was blue, one side was red.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I tagged my co-host like, this is this is the kind of picture that we need of us right here, you know. Uh, so it was one of those that just caught my eye. But I really love your Wally West and Silver Surfer.
Oh yeah, that one was one. Like I mean, obviously, because I'm kind of drawn on my own. Like everything I draw is something I want to draw, but that was one that I really had fun doing and drawing. Even though again, it's been long enough that there are some things I'd change about it now, but I'm still fairly proud of that one.
Now with your work, is there a certain like I'm gonna ask, but is there a certain character that you prefer to draw the most of?
Well, I mean, you have my Instagram pulled up, and anyone who scrolls through either that or my Twitter is going to see that the amount of Superman drawings that I do is vastly more than any other character. So the
That's
answer
what
to
I
that would be
thought.
Superman.
That's what I thought. Like I'm loving your Superman and the Rocketeer, by the way. That is
Oh, okay,
amazing.
yeah.
That is just amazing. So so now we're going to kind of divulge into some Superman based questions, just as you as a
Cool.
fan.
All right.
Okay. So you're like, yeah, good. No more art questions. Um, with the upcoming new film, something that we talked about is how would you like the logo to be? Do you want it to
Well,
be like a standard, kind of like in the vein of the Dean Cain, Christopher Reeve, um, Superboys? That are you wanting something a little bit on its own? I'm gonna let you answer, and I'll comment as you go. What I think. But
see, so this is where I tend to kind of have like a contrarian nature, and I mean that's honestly probably why I like Electric Superman, or like I like to draw the Fleischer suit, because it's stuff that's different from the norm. I don't know, maybe it's a need to be unique and quirky or whatever. But honestly, when it comes to that question, I would say, I mean, the obvious easy answer, especially because it's become more popular in the past couple of years, would be like the Fleischer suit, or not the Fleischer suit, the Fleischer logo. But I mean, that would be cool. But I'm also like, and again, this can be unpopular, kind of with Superman stuff, like the same thing where I don't think it needs to have the trunks if it's a good design without them. where like I'm open to new stuff as long as it's not like bad. And that might sound, I don't know if that sounds contradictory, but like I'd be fine if they do something new, but still kind of classic. But I, I guess I don't have a strong opinion on it. I don't necessarily think it has to be this or it has to be that. But it would be cool to see something new, I think. But I mean, I'll be
I am
happy
with
either way.
you. I am with you. I've seen a really good fan art of a new 52-esque suit with like the collar, but with the Fleischer style symbol.
Oh, okay.
Because I have always been, and I asked that because like I see you have a lot of like drawings with that. I have always liked that style of the symbol.
The Fleischer one?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
did a really just years ago. You can watch it. It's a funny little movie I did on my own, like fan film type thing. It's on my YouTube, and I made my own little like. It's what I call like a Smallville inspired Superman suit because it was made out of an old hoodie and stuff.
Okay.
But the symbol that I made was Fleischer inspired because I always liked the layers of just the you have the black, the gold, the
Right.
red. So I would not be opposed to that being, his symbol in the new film because one thing for me is with each iteration of the character, marketing is going to always try to do their own little take on the symbol so they can
Right.
sell it as this version.
Yep. Sell toys.
Thank you. That's what I said. There's a reason why every Batman, his logo is a little bit different.
Yep.
And in every movie, his suit's a little different because now I have to rebuy the shirt, the toys, and everything.
Yep. And that's my issue with a lot of comic book movies in general is like, they'll get like the perfect suit or something in the first or second movie or whatever. And it's like, man, it's going to be gone by the next movie because they got to sell toys with a new one. But that's the way it is, I guess.
Yep. And I also because I agree with you, like I've come to the rationale, like in comics, I don't care if he has the trunks, but live action, like I prefer no trunks. I think the Superman and Lois season 3, this last season's suit was really good.
Yeah, it is a lot better now that he doesn't have the shoulder pads that are way too big.
Yes. Yes. And then, but with trunks, I think, the Brandon Routh Kingdom Come style suit did really well.
I agree, yeah.
So, I mean, you can make them work, but I really I think no trunks work better. But that's a personal, everyone's like, oh, you got to go classic, man. And I got in an argument with somebody online because they were like, you got to go classic. And so I put a picture of Action Comics #1 with the boots and that old show.
Right.
I'm like, oh, so like this? You want to do this style? Like, no. I'm like, that's classic. That's original,
Yep.
So would you be safe to say that Superman's your favorite comic book character, or do you have another?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, hands down. Like honestly, I recently got I don't remember what the app is called. I think it's the Legion of Comic Geeks app, and you can catalog everything and whatever. And yeah, the amount of Superman books I have in my collection compared to anybody else it's far and away mostly Superman stuff. I mean, I'd say a close second as far as at least on the DC side would be Batman. I have a lot of Batman stuff too. And I know that's actually not necessarily a super common thing to like both of them because a lot of people are like, oh, it's got to be either one or the other. But I don't know. I grew up with both of those shows, so I like both of them. And then as far as Marvel goes, probably Daredevil. He's one I haven't drawn as much as I'd like to, but he'd probably be my favorite Marvel character.
I am feeling you on that. I really of course I like Superman, duh. But it's always interesting because some people they don't, and that's fine. Because you have a lot of really great art that shows you have some great Nightwing stuff. Captain America,
yeah, I forgot
Superman.
About him. I do like Nightwing a lot too.
I think Nightwing is a great character because he has this brightness of Superman, but he also has the detective and normal side like Batman. Wait, okay.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite Green Lantern?
See, that's a tough one because obviously I'm a 2000s kid, so I grew up with Justice League the animated series, and for the longest time, I thought John Stewart was the only Green Lantern. Like I didn't know about Hal Jordan until like because I don't think he was in Super Friends right away. I think he came in later. And first
Yeah.
it was like, hey, why does this Green Lantern look different than he's supposed to? And then my dad was like, oh well, that's because that's the other one from like the 70s or whatever. Because at this point, I don't think Hal Jordan had come back, in Rebirth and everything yet. But so it would have been John Stewart then, but then also when they introduced Kyle Rayner in Superman the Animated Series, or that was my introduction to him, I should say. It's like, hey, A, he's cool, and B, he likes to draw, and I like to draw, so I was like, oh, he's cool, because he's like me. And then I got older and read more Green Lantern stuff, and so I'd say I go back and forth between Hal Jordan and Kyle Rayner, because I've definitely read more Hal Jordan stuff. But I also have like the comic shop that I go to get my comics every week. He has a lot of old back issues, and so I'll get my new ones, and I'll get I don't know 1 or 2 old ones. And I started getting a lot of the Kyle Rayner books, like his original ones, and I really like those too. So I'd say right now, because of recency bias, it'd probably be Kyle Rayner, but it's a really close tie between the two of those.
I think lanterns are so tricky because, like you said, we were exposed to John Stewart as being kind of the only one, and then of course when the first one I kind of was introduced to was Kyle through the Superman the Animated Series, but it was like Kyle through the story of Hal. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's the thing with it. Is they definitely combine
and that's
things.
always the problem with lanterns and sometimes with flashes when they translate to other mediums is they start amalgamizing them.
Yep.
And that's why I would love like a really good Green Lantern cartoon or show or another like animated film where you get to meet and you have some sort of like legacy built out so you can really show the different sides of at least the main, what I call like the main four,
Yep.
Kyle, Hal, John, and Guy. So I mean, at least so that people can kind of know who these characters are, because it does get to be a lot. And sometimes, if you want to start a story off and have, say, Guy Gardner or John Stewart, you have to kind of find a way to do that and skip over Hal or something.
Yeah, like I know I didn't watch it, but that John Stewart like animated movie that came out, like I believe if I remember correctly, I saw the trailer for it, and it was like they gave him Kyle Rayner's story, and it's like I mean, I'm not one of those people where it's like it has to be this way and this way, because at the end of the day, like it's all made up stuff. It doesn't really matter. But I thought that was an interesting choice to slap Kyle's story on top of John and call it his story. It's just weird, but
it is very Kyle, and I feel like Kyle Rayner in a way is the Green Lantern like Tim Drake, okay, where Tim Drake became this great iconic Robin, but then they retroactively took everything from Tim Drake and made it Dick Grayson's.
Yeah,
his costume, his bow staff, a lot of his look and action that really set Tim apart to the non-comic book fan. It just became Robin, Dick Grayson.
Yeah, and that's probably largely because of the TV show, right? The Teen Titans TV show.
You had Teen Titans TV show. You had Batman the Animated Series, which came out that gave him that, and then even Batman Forever. He had a very Tim Drake style suit. It just worked. And then in comics now, like poor Tim, he is all lost in everything.
Yeah. That's kind of the way it feels being a fan of Connor Kent Superboy too. Although his new book has been really good. I really enjoyed it. But they kind of don't know what to do with him now that John Kent is a character.
Yeah, they really messed up, and I'm gonna go on my tangent here. They Bendis will ever make me angry for aging up John Kent. If they had done something where this is like a future John Kent that had come back, and like stopped his younger self from going on the mission or whatever, would have been fine. But 2 years ago, I got to meet Dan Jurgens, and
that's awesome.
I got him to he signed my Birth of John Kent book, and I said, this book means a lot because as a lifelong Superman fan, having this arc where he becomes a father is important to me, but also the fact that in comics, John Kent was born the same year that my son was born.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
So, and now my son is 8, and that's kind of where that the John Kent, the Superman and Lois miniseries that he wrote, John was 8. And,
Yep.
I could tell in Dan in our conversation, he was not happy with what had been done with John becoming older. And that's part of why now in Action Comics, he is, writing that backup story where John is younger. So that was one thing that made me mad, was I liked having like 12-year-old John Kent. And then, because you could have had some really cool kind of Nightwing and Robin type adventures with John and Connor.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but I mean, Connor was also gone for like a very long time too, so it's just rough. But yeah, the age up I mean, I guess you didn't ask for my opinion on it, but
No, tell me, please.
I'll give it anyway. See, initially, I flip flop on it, honestly. Initially, I thought it was dumb, but then I read some stuff about Bendis talking about it, and I do like this idea. And he mentioned it was a factor with like the Red Cloud, that villain in Action Comics, which. Don't ever ask me to like explain anything from that Action Comics run to you, because I absolutely could not. Like, I read it, but I don't know. It's rough. But I guess I should be careful saying that. I want to one day. I don't know about doing comic interiors, but I'd like to do like maybe variants or covers or something. So maybe I'm shooting myself in the foot by talking bad about a writer. But I like how he mentioned that he wanted it to be like give Superman something he can't punch his way out of. Like, I really like that idea. He can't just fix that his son is older than he was, or he can't just fight the Red Cloud because she's like missed or whatever. But I think it's a good idea, but I don't think they really executed it on it. And that's something that I've kind of thought about the whole Bendis era, is like he's got good ideas, but I don't know that they ever executed those ideas or fleshed them out in a way that was ever really interesting. And so that's kind of where I'm at on the John Kent stuff. Like I would prefer he was younger and didn't get aged up, but also I think that if they were to go back on it now, like I know some people think there's some conspiracy where they're about to like DH him back, but I feel like that would be kind of lazy. I feel like even though it's not great, they should just kind of stick with it and make the best with what they got. But I do agree that I don't think it was a great idea initially, because you barely got any time with him as a character before that.
Yeah. What do you call it? Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
No, you're good.
I agree, because I feel like we were just getting him. We were getting the Super Sons book. It was an awesome book. And then, we lost it. And we got older John that it just, I don't know. It just, yeah, if you were to go back and try to de-age him now, it wouldn't work.
Yep.
So it just bothered me. And I read that Bendis stuff and it was okay, but it just made me upset.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine.
I would say the one thing I really liked about his run, and like obviously they walked it back recently, but I did really like the Secret Identity reveal. And then obviously I loved Ivan Rice's art. I hope I'm saying his last name right. I've been saying it that way all the time, and I just realized it could be wrong. But I loved his art. That was the main reason I bought that book, and also because it was Superman. But that and the Secret Identity reveal, I really liked that. And then they just undid it to get back to the status quo, and I think that was also kind of lazy. But it is what it is.
I mean, isn't that kind of the nature of comics so much, honest?
Yep.
is no one lets anything happen for really long just stay that way. I mean,
Yeah.
So, but it is what it is.
Yep.
I agree though that his run, the artwork was amazing, and I agree with you. I hope I think the name is right, but
Yeah, I think it is, but I mean, I could be wrong. So,
his art was amazing.
yeah, his Superman is like up there for me. I always, if you ask me to make a list right now of like my top Superman artists, it's going to be tough because I'm going to give you like probably 20 names because there's like little things that a bunch of different artists do. Like with Ivan Rice specifically, he does a thing, and this is again nerding out a little bit. There might not be a lot of people that notice this, but on when he draws Superman with the trunks, he kind of gives him the slanted belt, where like the belt slants down a little bit into the buckle, and like I really like that look, and so I absolutely stole that for my Superman too. But his Superman is like one of the best. I love it so much.
It's a great look. It's just he did the art for. Oh, I'm trying to remember what else he did that I loved.
Honestly, everything he draws is good, but
yeah. I mean, true. Yeah. So, you were talking about, messaging people and stuff like that. One artist that I really love that I haven't seen for a while has been Jason Fabok. Like I haven't really seen him do much because I loved his art, his Superman.
Yeah, again, he's one of those people that everything he draws looks good. I know he's done variant covers recently. Like, I know it might have been quite a few months ago at this point. Like, I know I have the comic shop I go to, like, I have a pull list, kind of. Generally, it's fun because it's like an older guy, and he can just kind of look at you and know what you're going to want that week. And so when it comes to variant covers, I just generally take what he gives me. And a couple months ago, I know I got a World's Finest cover that he actually drew. But other than that, I haven't seen that much from him recently.
I know it's been weird. It just makes me wonder, like, because even you talking about Patrick Gleason, I'm like, what has he done recently?
I know he's done Spider-Man because he moved over to Marvel, and that's been his big.
And that's my thing is I don't keep up with Marvel, so like when some of these artists and stuff go over there, I just in my mind I'm like, so they're not drawing anymore?
Yep. Yeah, I have a couple Marvel books that I get, but like with Spider-Man especially, I've tried a couple times, but there's like 5 different Spider-Man books that are all releasing like twice monthly, and it's like it's too much work for me to keep up with. So even though I really liked him and liked his art, I haven't picked up any of that Spider-Man run because it's just like I don't know what's going on.
So who would you say is your favorite comic book artist of all time?
Oh,
if you had to pick. I know it's tough.
That's tough. Because that's one that, depending on the day, can change sometimes because I'll be like, oh, I really like this guy. And then, I'll look at another person's stuff and be like, oh, I really like their stuff too. But, man, that is a tough question. Of all time. See,
there's no right answer or wrong answer because I'm there with you. Because I would be like, oh, this person. But then, you're just like,
okay. So I'm going to think of it as like, as far as like, if there was a book with their art, which would I absolutely pick? Okay, because it would be much harder if you asked me who did my favorite Superman, but I think I should be able to.
Oh, that is a ridiculously tough question. I would never ask because I think Patrick Gleason's cover is great. I think Fabok did an amazing job when he was working on Justice League. Rice, if we're pronouncing that correctly, is inspirational. I think when why is his name leaving me? Oh crap! It just evaded me. Hold on, it'll come back to me. He's the one that drew Secret Origins with Jeff Johns. And Doomsday Clock.
Gary Frank.
Yes, when Gary Frank's not drawing him to look just like Christopher Reeve, his looks awesome. So that I couldn't pinpoint. There's one artist I'm going to ask you about here in a minute and see what you think.
Okay. I think I've got an answer. So, because
Okay.
I was trying to think of like, scoring it in like who draws, like, how there's separate artists that generally people think, oh, they draw this character the best and this character the best.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna go with like who I think draws everyone really well. I'd say probably it'd be like Darwin Cook, honestly. And you can probably see that in my stuff a little bit, but I really love his style a lot. I don't think he's ever drawn anyone that looks bad.
I love his style. Rest in peace. I was talking about him the other day. We were at a comic book store and they had I wish they still did this, but they had a couple of, it was Cyborg and John Stewart Darwin Cook figures.
Okay.
The figures based on his art. And I told my wife, like, I really want a Darwin Cook Superman.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I did have like I think it was DC Direct or something. They made those action figures, and yeah, I had the Superman and Batman, and those are pretty cool.
I think his art, yeah, I can definitely see a correlation to yours. There's a uniqueness, a fun, a playfulness to it, but it's still serious art.
I appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome. I'm not gonna BS. But
I think the nicest comment I ever got was when I did. It was like last year sometime, so you might not be able to see it right away on my Instagram page. But I did like a Hal Jordan drawing, and I did like two versions of it. One where it was normal color, and one where, and it was directly inspired by. I've seen Darwin Cook has done a bunch of like sketches where he does the drawing, like it's inked and everything, but then it's just one color in there doing all the rendering.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did a version of that where it was just like the black and white inks and then green, and that was it. And I posted that, and somewhere there was someone who commented and was like, oh man, are you like Darwin Cook's nephew or something? Because this looks awesome. And that was like best comment I've ever gotten on anything, period.
You were like, thank you.
Yep. Like, absolutely. Just trying to copy the people who are good.
Now, I would never talk bad about other people's art, but there is this one comic book artist. I won't say his name because it's not bad. It's not bad art. It's just, it's kind of his art. He still works today, but his art threw me because the book I had purchased had it's back before I really knew that they would get people to just do covers.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking at this cover and I'm like, oh, that's awesome. And then I opened the book like, what is this?
Oh, that's rough.
Because it was a very stark difference. And I say that because his artwork's not bad and it has a similar vibe to yours, but I think yours is a step above.
Is there any chance you're talking about John Romita Jr.? I always mess up on how to say that last name. But
no, I'll tell you who it is later, off mic.
Okay,
cool. I have a love-hate relationship with JRJR.
See, that's the same. I think it honestly depends on what character he's working on. Because, like, I love his older Spider-Man stuff.
As long as he's not drawing mainstream characters, I'm good. like when he drew like Kick-Ass and stuff like that, I'm like, this is sweet. But then when he was drawing Superman, I was like, this is weird.
See, I liked his Superman when he did it during the New 52 with Jeff Johns, but I did not like his Action Comics work. Like, that was rough for me because, and again, I don't hate Bendis's writing, but it's not necessarily my cup of tea. So for the Superman book, I had Ivan Rice's art to look at, and so that made it for me. But when it came to the Action Comics, I had art that I wasn't necessarily feeling and writing that I wasn't necessarily feeling, so it was just kind of to me. But the funny thing, why I asked you if you were thinking of him is because there was one time I actually, and again, I'm prefacing this by saying I don't think he's terrible. I think it's just one of those things where, it depends. And at the end of the day, it's all subjective, so it's whatever. But I'm not trying to draw like him. And there was one time I posted something and someone was like, oh, this kind of has a JR vibe to it. And I was like, oh, please don't say that to me because that's not what I want to hear. Because I'm not trying to draw like him, and so I don't want to hear that it looks like his stuff. But I've only ever gotten that one time, so I'm disregarding it.
I feel like if it's a one-off, man, like, it's just one person, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yep.
His work is, I have nothing against his work, honestly. I read his book he did with Scott Snyder, the Batman. I have a poster of it right here.
Oh, All-Star Batman?
Yeah, the All-Star Batman when they relaunched that. And it was cool, but like I said, my thing is I just don't always vibe when he does mainstream characters, but when he does his own stuff, I'm good. But I just think but you have to hand it to the guy for having his own style that just says this is me.
And what also kind of, I don't know if changed my mind because I never thought he was terrible, but it made sense. Is there's a video out there somewhere where he's drawing. I think he's actually drawing the cover for All-Star Batman. But where he says, he's like talking about it, and he says that whenever someone asks him to describe what a style is, he just says it's deadline style. So whatever he has to do to make the deadline and get it out the door. And so it's like, hey, I mean, I can respect that. You're doing your job, so it's as long as it takes for me to meet my deadlines, and that's it.
What are your thoughts on like the work of Libra Mayo?
See, this might be unpopular, but I don't know that I like his Batman that much. I know that's his really popular one, but I do really like his Superman a lot. Like specifically and again, this is nerding out about like little details, but like the way he draws the hair, I don't know how to explain it, but the way he draws the hair combined with like the face shape on the character, I think it works really well. And I really like the motif or gimmick or whatever you want to call it, where he's glowing like the sun. I think that's really awesome. But I will say I've seen a couple covers where I don't necessarily think I like the way he draws the trunks. I think it looks just a little bit off, but that's a minor thing.
I think his cover for Superman, it was in I literally printed it out and put it in a frame and hung up in my super room because I think it's so great. It's a cover of an issue, but it was later put in the collection of Superman like Secret Origin. When they did like this, DC did a New 52 thing. They just called it a book Secret Origin, where they had everybody's story. There. But it's the one where it's like it's the explosion. Then you kind of see him running, and it's the New 52 T-shirt and jeans into the suit. I wish I had a poster of it, like it, and a couple of the shots of Superman from Noel.
Yep, that was what I was. I've never read that book, but I've seen like pretty much all the Superman pages, and I love it.
Oh, I read it every year for Christmas at Christmas.
Hey, there you go.
I actually read it with my son this year because he was doing a play of A Christmas Carol, and Noel's kind of a Batman version of A Christmas Carol. So him and I actually sat and read it together. So I made it. It's been a tradition since I bought the book to read it every year. And I wish that he would do more Superman because, the other thing he did major with Superman was, besides covers, was the Luthor book, where Superman's depicted as evil because it's all from Lex Luthor's point of view, which we'll be reviewing soon on the podcast. I love his like designs. Like my wife bought me the figure, the Superman, the Libra Mayo Superman figure that came out back a while back, and because I love the way the suit looks and everything, and I wish out of all his artwork, the only one that I could ever find as a poster is from Joker, his Joker book, and I was like, I wish I could have Superman, Libra Mayo Superman as a poster. So he's just
I agree. He's really good.
So tell us more. Like, what do you go to cons or anything and set up and sell art, or?
So this year back in April, I actually did my first kind of show. It's like a smaller one. Because I mean, I live in a town that it's not like small, but it's like 200,000 people ish. So it's not huge either. But they had a local like Comic-Con, and so I did set up a table there and like sold prints and stuff. And I mean, I didn't do gangbusters or anything, but I made my money back on the table, so that was all I cared about. And yeah, it was fun. And I was looking at, it's not going to happen this year, maybe next year or the year after. But I was looking at maybe trying to pay to do Dallas Fan Expo. But as of right now, that's like a pipe dream. But I think I'll do the local one again next year. But it's one of those things that it's like, I think I'll do them, like, if I have time and I'm able to do it. But like, I've already gotten a 9 to 5 job, and so this isn't ever going to be like my career unless I like take off and just start selling stuff like crazy. But so yeah, I have done them, and I probably will do more in the future. But I'm not like running the con circuit or anything.
That's cool though. I mean, I'm glad that you're actually getting out there and sharing it, because if I was at a con and saw your stuff, it would be like one I'd be drawn to purchase, because my wife and I, we have talked a lot about, like, when we go to cons, like, yeah, I'm there to see people that I want to meet or whatever, but at the same time, I try to buy local indie artwork. Like, I have a drawing on my wall that is a guy who was just drawing and selling them. He's a full-time firefighter, and this one comic book store up by where we live, what's like 40 minutes away, but do like their own not at Comic-Con convention.
Okay.
And they get, local artists or professional comic book artists to come and, try to promote it. And I just like, you know what? I just love supporting. That. So when I go to cons, I try to find people, and I like to buy artwork for my kids' room, stuff like that. Just to have, like, my son has a really cool green arrow that we bought at a convention that someone did. I like having that kind of stuff around for my kids, just to kind of experience like comic book art. But it's not, like, I'm not paying a whole lot for it.
Yeah.
But I'm supporting someone who's doing this as, a side or something that they enjoy doing, and just, if they're talented, support.
Yeah. Yeah, like there's a guy that he was actually one of the reasons that I tried to like get into the local show, because I saw him there. I was like, oh, I really like his stuff, and I mean, he's way better than I am. But I was like, I'm kind of close, so I feel like if he gets in, I could probably get in, and I did. But I bought so many prints from him, because he had a thing where it was like, I think they were 25 each, or you could buy one get one half off. So I have a bunch of them. Like, he has a bunch of Star Wars ones, and so I have a whole wall of like Star Wars ones. And then this year I also bought a bunch from him. He traded with me actually too for a couple of mine. So, but yeah, I agree with like yeah. I mean, I want to have stuff that's like Jim Lee or Dan Mora or whatever, but I also like seeing different stuff and getting that.
I have really been getting into, you say that, Dan Mora's art. Like, I always liked it, but since he's been doing this book with Mark Waid and just doing Superman, I've really, really liked it.
Yeah, he's another one of those ones that, like, nothing he draws looks bad. And every time, the DC solicits drop and everybody starts posting the covers on Twitter, I'll see those, and anytime I see a new Dan Mora cover, it's this paradox where it equal parts makes me want to quit drawing because I'm never going to be that good, but also start drawing like crazy so I can maybe be that good, because it's like everything, it's just perfect.
See, if you feel like that, man, I'm going to tell you this. Look at someone who does it, and they're doing it, and you're better than them, and just remember, you can do it too. Like, I know it sounds horrible, but like, there are the greats, but just because someone's that good doesn't mean that you can't be doing it too.
Right. That's very true. The other thing with him too, kind of going off on a tangent because I really like his stuff.
Oh, no, you're
but
fine.
That guy is crazy fast. Like, the volume of stuff that he draws in like a given like month time frame is crazy. Because like he does. One thing I've really liked about the World's Finest book is that they do like the complete story arcs, and he's always the artist for it. And then they'll have like a filler issue after a story arc where it's a different artist. But honestly, like, the main reason I buy that book is because of his art. Like, if he ever left, I'd probably keep buying it, but I wouldn't like it as much. But just the fact that he's been able to consistently stay on it, and that's not really like a common thing.
I just feel like he's got a thing going with Mark Waid, because now they're doing Shazam together.
Oh yeah, that one is really good too. I forgot about that one.
So yeah, I'm with you. Like, I've really And I think it maybe, I don't want to say his style is easier, but I think he has his style and he can do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's quick. Like if you look at it, like if you look at just his line art, like he's really good. That so this isn't a like disparaging in any way, but it's more like sketchy for lack of a better word, where you can
Yeah.
tell he's just in there doing it really quick, and it works because he's good at it.
Yeah.
But I think that's part of how he's able. Because I saw a video of him inking one time, and what he's inking over, and it's crazy because I could never do this, and maybe I need to start doing it more. But like when I draw something, obviously it's digital, so like inking isn't technically the correct word, but the layer that I'm doing my line art over the top of is pretty close to what the original line art looks like. It just doesn't have the line weights. But when he was doing it, he was essentially inking over scribbles, and I was like, oh, how is he doing that? But I mean, I guess that's just what happens when you're good.
Yeah, he knows he's doing his own thing. He knows his work.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's impressive. I mean, like I said, he's an artist that I knew of, and then I felt like I rediscovered him when he started this World's Finest book, and I've loved.
I think that's when he took off in popularity too.
See, this is the kind of conversations because I enjoy talking about the art with people who do art, you know, and
Oh yeah,
art's always been one thing that I wish that I could do. But it just was not, so it happens. But
yeah, I mean,
let's where can people find, like, let's go ahead and knock out your plugs here. So people,
Okay.
if they want to see your work, like what exactly your Twitter is or your X.
oh,
I'm still gonna call it
sorry
Twitter,
about that.
dude. I'm calling it Twitter
Yeah,
till
I mean,
till-
it hasn't even officially changed yet, but yeah, nobody cares. It's Twitter.
it still says Twitter home. Like on my what's funny
Yep.
is I put Twitter on my iPad because I realized I didn't have it because my daughter's been using it, and it downloaded as the X, but on my phone it's still the bird.
Oh really? Yeah, my phone's still the bird. I don't know if the name changed, I guess, but it still looks the same.
Yeah, if you go to like the website like I am right now, it says twitter.com, but it says home/X.
Yeah, that's whatever. But
It's the same marketing people who named
yep.
HBO Max.
Yeah. Yeah, it's dumb. But as far as my handles, Instagram would be just my name, Isiah Simmons, and then .art. I think that's right. And then my Twitter is just @Simmons_art. Because Twitter doesn't let you put dots in your name.
And I will have all that in the show notes so everyone can check it out and enjoy it, because his work is it's refreshing and it's bright, and I think it's everything that we love about our comic book heroes. It's just uplifting. I think sometimes, like, my friend and I have been on a whole conversation just about the need to feel the brightness and the happiness that these characters can be, compared to always the darkness that we've come to want to put them in. So I think your art really reflects that.
Well, I appreciate that, and I've gotten that comment before, like specifically about the colors, and I'm glad people like that, because that's always one thing where I'm like, man, do I need to kind of like dial it back a little bit, because I don't know if it's too much or too cartoony or whatever. But then generally every time I'm kind of feeling like that, someone will talk about how they like it. It's like, okay, I guess I'm good. I can keep it.
What are your thoughts about My Adventures of Superman? Are you watching?
Oh, dude. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I did. I watched the first 2 episodes when they dropped, and then I stayed up until 5 a.m. doing that Superman and Lois from the show in that style. But yeah, no, I'm really liking it. It's nice. Like, you know, obviously being a Superman fan is kind of rough at times, because up until the past couple of years, there hasn't been a whole lot like outside of the comics, and then we got Superman and Lois, and then now this. But yes, I'm really liking it. I like the art style. I like that, you know, it's what I was talking about before, where something different. Although I will be honest, I'm not a huge fan of the redesigned symbol on there. I don't know. I don't like the squareness of the shapes in there. I don't think it necessarily works, but I mean, it is what it is. But I'm really liking the show. I like the overall vibe it has, and that it's different. Like, I know some people don't like that all the villains are tech based or whatever, but I don't know. I don't have strong feelings, and I'm okay with it.
I'm with you. I don't mind that they're tech based right now because I feel like it just gives a different kind of perspective. I'm enjoying the show. I love the upbeat and the brightness.
Yep.
What I love is that my kids love it, and when it's Friday, they automatically will say they knew My Adventures, and we watch it as a family, me, my wife, and our kids. We don't miss it. We won't watch it without each other for the first time. Then after that, you can watch as much as you want. My son really he loves it. He laughs. He really digs the way they're doing Jimmy Olsen.
Yeah, I do. I love the flame bird thing. Like, as soon as they said that, and I don't remember if it was the first or second episode, I was like, that's awesome.
And like this past, did you watch the newest episode?
Yeah. Yes.
Where he talks about going to find Sasquatch. My son's like,
Yep.
Because my kids love like wanting to hunt Sasquatch and Mothman. So.
Yeah, and the way it ended with Titano, I didn't even think of that, but when that happened, I was like, oh, of course, that's perfect. Like, that's awesome.
It's just been really good on what we've needed for this character, but I'm with you on the symbol. The symbol to me is a little too square.
Yeah.
It reminds me more of a Kryptonian Zod symbol that I've seen in comics.
It does kind of, because it does kind of have the Z vibe, even though it's an S, but
I almost wish they would do something where like he changes it later to be a mixture of his Kryptonian heritage and the letter, and we get more of like the Kingdom Come style. So
yeah,
I feel like that's a happy medium.
Yeah, I really like the Kingdom Come one. I don't think it should be like a mainstream one, but I do really like it a lot.
So, well, we're at an hour, and I always try to keep it to about an hour. I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Yes, sir. It's a lot of fun.
You are always welcome to come back, and we appreciate it. I encourage everyone to check out his art, see what's going on. Maybe if there's something, order a commission,
Yeah,
help the man spread it.
Now.
And he does have his prices listed, so it is easy to find how much and what you're looking at doing. So, and it's reasonably priced, So get on that. So Isaiah, thank you for joining me. I appreciate it, man. You're welcome.
Sure. All right. Have a good rest of your night.
Part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
What's up, everybody? Chase Smith here from the Chase Smith Podcast and Cavs on the Break NBA Podcast.
And I'm JD, host of the Hyman Podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network, and we are super excited to bring you a brand new show starting next Tuesday, the Fanfare Podcast.
The Fanfare Podcast is all about your favorite movies and our favorite movies and the best moments in cinema. To help guide our discussion, each episode will feature one classic, and we will grade this movie using a report card-like scale A through F. We're going to be grading categories like acting, directing, cinematography, the score, and even the movie poster itself.
And when we're not featuring a movie report card, we'll be sharing our movie rankings, franchise deep dives, actor and director interviews, and everything in between. Movies have been a major part of our lives, and we cannot wait to share our thoughts with you.
Our premiere episode will drop Tuesday, June 27th, and JD and I will be reviewing Raiders of the Lost Ark in preparation of the release of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny on June 30th, the 5th installment of the franchise.
Join us on the Fanfare Podcast, available on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcast.
Hello, Brooks here with the Books with Brooks monthly book club podcast. Here's how Books with Brooks works. We read one book a month, and then we talk about it. Classics like Stephen King's The Shining, debut novels like We Are the Brennans by Tracy Lang, and tons of other compelling, life-changing stories, one book and 1 month at a time. So come read along with us, and then listen in.
Before we start this episode of Krypton Report, I want to take a moment and just give a shout out here to our Patreon. I know what you're thinking. Gosh, everyone's asking for money, and I get it. But our Patreon is only $1. $1 a month that helps us keep the podcast going. And what we do is we try to find interesting shows and topics and whatever we want to talk about. We've done, as of this little thing, our last recordings were on the Scream series. Brian and Tyler, that's me, do our own show where we record in the car, and it's kind of funny. And we talk about pop culture or whatever is going on. We also have the Supernatural podcast we've been reworking. It's taken some time just because of life. But we do movie commentaries as well. It's something that James and I have done, what we used to do on the main show that we've started doing here. So for $1 a month on our Patreon, you can get those shows. There's at least 4 a month. Also, there's my movie pitch show that I do. But also, what we want is if you're a Patreon, you can come on. You can come on the main show if you want. Or if there's something you want to come on and talk about, we can do it as a Patreon special. So all I want is for $1 a month, think about chipping in, joining our Patreon, and you have a voice to be a part of things. Follow the link in the link tree or in the show notes below, patreon.com/Krypton Report.
This is Dan Jurgens, and if you want to have a good time, keep listening to the Krypton Report.
Look up in the sky.
We just want to say if you've enjoyed this podcast, please check out other podcasts on the Press Play Podcast Network.
If you are like Tyler and James and can't get enough super talk, check out these other podcasts. Digging for Kryptonite, Supergirl Radio, The Last Sons of Krypton, The Superboy Legacy Podcast, All-Star Superfans, Superman the Animated Podcast, The Aspiring Kryptonians, Always Hold On to Smallville, The Geek of Steel, and Truth, Justice, and Hope.
Remember to check out Krypton Report on all social media platforms. Go to linktree.com/Krypton Report. You find all of our information.